Got it. Okay, everybody, we are live. This is Ghost to Ghost PM, and I am your host, Roger Belt, along with the lovely Michelle Fitzpatrick. Okay, everybody, we are live. Somebody did come up PM, and I am your host, Roger Belt, along with the lovely.
That was probably Dan.
Okay, we're all good. It goes on. We are live. This is Ghost to Ghost PM, and as I said, I'm your host, Roger Belt, and my lovely partner is Michelle Fitzpatrick. And we have a great show for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking about the double-blind ghost spot study with authors Sawn Taylor and Daniel Morgan. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Now, as I stated, I will be over here in the chat room area, but you guys carry on as normal. Trying to see Bill's here. Hello, Bill. Hello, Angela. Some of our regular people are coming in now. Hey, Amy.
Yeah, Darren,
Anyway,
William, Angie. Yeah, we got a nice turnout tonight. Thank you, guys.
yeah, we appreciate y'all. I have some interesting stuff, and a lot of this is from the first chapter of y'all's book, because this is really cool.
Okay.
It's called The Double Blind Ghost Box, and like I said, authors are Sawn Taylor and Daniel Morgan. And if y'all guys want, you can tell them where they can find us.
John, you want to start on?
Yeah. So, with our book, if you don't already have it, you can go to the doubleblindghostbox.com. You can find it there. If you go to YouTube and look for Supernatural Media, any of our videos will actually have links to the book. It's actually much cheaper to go through our website than going through the actual publications website, which is I believe it's iuniverse.com. So that's how you actually get a copy of the book. And you can also join us on Facebook as well. If you just look for Supernatural Media, we'll come up there. And then also Double Blind Ghost Box actually has a Facebook page as well. We're all over the place, I guess.
Awesome. Yeah, usually if you go through another place, they're going to have a markup on things.
That's exactly right. Yeah, there's a markup. Yeah.
You go directly to the source.
Yep.
You can get a better deal.
That's right.
Anyway, I always do this, and I mentioned this earlier. I like to find out what it was that got Sawn Taylor and Daniel Morgan into the paranormal to start with.
Well, when we first started, it really began as a conversation that Sawn and I had around the dinner table. One night we had been talking about the paranormal. Sawn and I both had experiences at a younger age when we were growing up, and we had talked about it. And I'd studied parapsychology for years when I was in high school. It was something that I was interested in then. We were trying to determine what exactly I witnessed and what I saw. And, Sawn and I had that in common. So we are live.
Oh, that gun player. I'm sorry.
Well, we decided that, Sawn and I are both Christians, and we both decided that, who better to figure out what's going on here than us, and then coming at it from a different angle, because we've never really seen it approached from that angle before. And so we decided that we were going to take a very scientific approach. We wanted to do everything by the books. We didn't really want to walk into it with preconceived notions of what we were seeing. We wanted to understand what is this, and how does this fit into the paradigms that we understand, the faith that we have. How do we do that? And that's really what got us started. And Sawn can elaborate on his side.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it would drive me crazy. At the time when Dan and I got into it, there was several shows and whatnot online or on the television, and it was very frustrating to see some of the explanations for the events that were happening, and we thought, look, it's probably a good idea for Christians to actually be in this field as well, to have a Christian perspective on a secular, dominated field. Technically, as a Christian, we're supposed to if we're supposed to have the answer to the afterlife, who better to be dealing with the afterlife than Christians? So we decided to get into it from a Christian Scientist type of perspective. So you take science and the Bible and you merge them together and you analyze the situation. And we said, look, our theology might get blown away, or our science might get blown away. We don't know what to expect. We'll just go in and analyze this and see what happens. And our world got rocked. So hence the book and why we're having this conversation. But that's how we got started. It's just talking over dinner one day, and we said, we ought to get into this.
I think it's really cool because you have to have different outlooks. You have your Christian outlook, you have your pagan outlook, you have there's probably other different aspects out there that I can't even think of off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody's looking at things from a different standpoint.
Yeah.
And hopefully we come up with the same answer.
Yeah, I mean, that's the really neat thing about our particular team is that in order to be on this team, that you don't have to be a Christian to be on our team. We have a lot of perspectives on our team. Amy and Dave are critical people on our team, and they have perspectives. And Dave, man, he will poke me and say, hey, there's another perspective on this. You might want to take a look at it. So he's always, got really good ideas. But it's good to be able to have a lot of perspectives on a given situation. Another good friend that we have is Patrick Burke. He joins our team very often, and we actually got together as two totally different teams with two different methodologies, and we got together to analyze this particular situation, and then we would compare notes at the end and say, okay, what did you come up with, and what did you guys come up with? And it was amazing because we're basically seeing exactly the same thing, but totally different perspectives. We're coming at it from this, our frame of mind, and he's coming from his frame of mind, and it works out.
Okay. I kind of want to get into what transpired that gave you the general idea to try the types of experiments that you did.
Yeah, Dan, this is you.
How did that just come about? What were you doing when you decided to try this stuff?
Well, a lot of it. I mean, some of it. Our original approaches were pretty standard. EMF detectors, EVPs with visual recorders. Magnetic tape recorders. We did all the what you call the standard. Paranormal investigation stuff. Some of the stuff that was a little more out there, including the ghost box, ghost radio, Frank box, shack hack, whatever you want to call it. That really came about. We had seen it done on some of the television shows early on. And our initial response when we saw those was, okay, I hear what they're hearing, but because they're doing it the way they're doing it, we really felt like they could be matrixing the answers out of what they were listening to. If somebody was saying, what color's the sky, and the box said blue and everybody heard it, that's fine. But what you had was you had somebody say, I think I heard it say blue. Did it say blue? I think I heard it say blue. And it was one of those things that, okay, if the listener understood the question, then the problem would be that they could pull that response out of that static themselves and hear basically whatever they want to hear. So when we determined, okay, we want to test this, but we have got to come up with a method in which we can test and at the same time, eliminate that one little problem. And with that, we decided, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have the listener listening to that ghost box, but we're going to do what we call a double-blind experiment, which is where we had the listener.
You host Grab the Belt along with God. All this thing had to make I mean, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But so what we did is we decided, okay, while the process is going on, we want to make it to where the listener cannot hear the question. They're completely separated and isolated from the questioner. So what we did was we gave them headphones, and when they put those in, the radio chatter that comes across basically deafens them to anything going on outside of what they're doing. And then the second thing we did was to make sure that they closed their eyes. They were kind of set away a little bit so that they got no, real world
no input at all.
Right, no input from what was being asked. They don't even know if a question is being asked at that point in time. So the first time we tried it, we basically, honestly, we thought what was going to happen was we're going to debunk this. We're going to find out this is nothing, and we're just going to move on. And our surprise, that didn't happen. So, Sawn is the listener in our group mainly. We have actually 2 or 3 in our team. Sean's one of the primaries. He's really one of the first ones that did it. So I'll let him talk about the listening aspect. But it surprised us. And what we thought was just going to be something we're going to toss in the trash ended up being one of the cornerstones of what our group has really become to do. That's what we do.
Yeah, and that's there's a couple of points that I want to bring up again. When you hear ghost boxes or frank boxes, usually they're done open air, so that means that you're hearing all of the chatter. So when you ask the question, what color is the sky, everyone around is expecting the answer, including everyone who's listening. They're expecting to hear blue or whatever, and that's why we have the double-blind ghost box. That's where the listener is jacked into that ghost box, and he cannot hear what the questions are. So how can he possibly answer that question? So in my case, myself and actually Dave and Amy also do a lot of listening, but we have the ghost box directly in our ears, and I close my eyes and get away from the team, and then they ask the questions, and then we do what we call first in, first out. And that means as I hear it on the ghost box, I try to say it out loud. Where that gets a little weird is when you're hearing a long, it takes an art. It is an art, because, if you wait too long, the next phrase may be started on the ghost box, and now you're trying to do the catch-up game. Or if you're too fast, you can miss a second part of the phrase that's being stated on the box. So that's where evidence reviews really helps us out, where we can bring all that information. We have the recorder connected to our ears, but we also have it connected to a recorder too, so we can play it back, line it up with the audio and the video, and we can say, okay, this is what the ghost box was saying at the same time, so we can actually play them simultaneously during review. So. But statistically speaking, if you're asking a bunch of questions and 65% of the time you're getting correct answers to that, then you've got something significant there.
I agree 100%. For the people who might not have gotten an opportunity to read your bio or, don't know very much about you, before we go any further, can you give a little bit about what this ghost box you're talking about is, a little bit more detail about what it is and compared to maybe the SB7 or the SB11, stuff like that, in case there was somebody who didn't take the time to read
sure. Dana, did you want to do that, or you want me to do that?
Go ahead and do that, Sean.
Okay. So where do we begin? With the ghost boxes themselves, a ghost box, this is the box that we use. I don't know if you can really see all that really well, but this is the 12, the Radio Shack 12469, I believe it is, and it is modified so that it constantly runs, and so the radio stations will zip in and zip out, as it were, along with the white noise and everything else. And then there are many different boxes. There are some that you can buy which are specifically geared to do essentially the same thing, sweep through radio stations. so that you can get responses. There are also apps now that kind of do the exact same thing. We've been doing it for a while. We've been doing it since 2009, I believe. And so we kind of use the same boxes, because if it isn't broken,
Why fix it?
Right, why switch it? So, but anyway, for the bio part, I had a near-death experience in 1992, and in that near-death experience, I was basically sent to hell, and I called out to Jesus Christ in that state, and He saved me. He actually took my place, and then He said He was going to send me back and teach me great things. And then I learned the Bible. I learned about what it is to be a Christian on earth. And then I became a pastor, ordained minister, and then I met Dan, and then we got into doing this. And, ironically, now I'm doing exactly the same thing that happened to me in my near-death experience. I was outside of my body. I didn't really know Christ. And I came to know Christ, and He saved me. And here we are doing the exact same thing for other people who don't have bodies. We didn't know it was possible, but apparently it is. And so we wrote a book about it, at least the first book.
Yeah, that's very, very intense. Thank you so much for sharing. Very intense.
Man, it's really cool. And, when I advertised the show, the details that I gave were part of what I'm fixing to bring up right now, called the fringe science.
Oh, yeah.
And it basically means to study a science that does not at this time follow the norm. And so this study is basically at this time considered a fringe science. Is that right?
Yes, that would be correct.
So, you guys are, how did I say this? As the thing for Star Trek said, braving a new frontier, so to speak.
Yeah.
Have you had like negative feedback from anybody, or has it all been pretty well positive?
It's all great.
It's funny you say that, because we, of course, obviously, you always have people, that are going to give you that negative feedback, but it's hilarious. One of the funniest ones that we've ever gotten, or I guess we considered it flattering, because the person came on and said, "We know exactly how you did this. You did this with this software and this, and that's how you're getting such good responses." And Sean and I are laughing in the background, because we're going, they just validated everything that we did. Because, we know we're not using software, but the fact that they thought we were tells us that they're hearing the same things we're hearing.
Right. If the only explanation for it is that we're faking it, or we're manipulating it in some way, if that's the only explanation and we're not doing that, that's pretty awesome. Yeah. It's funny that you would say that, man, because I literally just told that same story yesterday. Yeah, that was by far the funniest one that we had ever had. Somebody actually thought that we had like a little walkie-talkie inside of our radio.
Everybody, there's going to be a negative Nancy among every group of people.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I brought that up. I figured there's somebody out there that's going to try to find fault in what you're doing.
Well, and and on a more serious note, we are Christians in a paranormal field, so the world really doesn't like what it is that we do, because our explanation is Jesus. And then the church really doesn't like us for what we do, because it's taboo and it's very misunderstood. So you kind of get it from both sides, and you have to work your way through that. And we're not here to argue the point. I'm not here, and I hate to say it this way, but this is the truth. I'm not here for the church. I'm here for the lost. So although I am here for the living first, I am also here for the dead.
Exactly.
So I need to make sure that that's clear.
I love the way you worded that. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, I love that. So if you could kind of explain, because most everybody knows, but there's some out there who don't know what a ghost box is. Kind of give
I'm good at that.
give them a rundown of what a ghost box is and how it works.
Basically, the ghost box that we use what's called a shack hack, which is a variant of a type of ghost box. And basically, what we do is we modify the radio to where it runs through all the channels, like a regular stand on any radio that you have. Like you go to your car, you're looking for an FM station, you hit the button, it scans through the stations, and stops on a particular channel that has a strong signal. Well, what we do is we modify the box so that, number one, it doesn't mute the channels as it's running through them, and two, it never stops. So it runs and doesn't actually stop on a strong station. So what you get is a very high-speed chatter of noise that comes across the ghost box. And basically the theory, and the theory has actually changed for us a little bit. The initial theory was that the spirits could utilize that chatter to create, words, or maybe even phrases if they were strong enough, so that the listener could hear what they were saying. As of late, though, we've had some experiences that have led us to believe that that's not quite accurate. That probably was actually happening is the ghost box, the radio, because of the way that it's tuning, is actually able to pick up that spiritual voicing instead of being manipulated. So we're actually hearing it
Right.
in real time. Kind of like
I agree, man. That's actually something that we actually stated in the book, that we believe that the ghost box itself was being manipulated by the spirit, but we're actually seeing more evidence that the radio was doing what a radio does, and that's just pick up the signal. That's it. And then we hear the signal. The spirit themselves isn't sitting here going, okay, let me get this word out of it. They're just saying the word, and the radio's picking it up.
Well, that to me is kind of like, if I could throw an example out, you've got transmitters, obviously, that send out frequencies. You've got like 99.9, 99.7, and depending on which channel you tune into is which frequency signal you're going to pick up. So the message is always there, is always being sent out. But wherever whatever frequency you dial into is where you pick up the words, for lack of a better terminology. So that's pretty much kind of what you're saying?
Well, no, we've actually had scenarios where we've had spirits that were strong enough to actually speak full sentences. And we're talking full sentences across a spectrum of channels. It may have actually run through the entire band twice. Yes. And the same spirit is actually, you can hear his voice all the way through all the channels. And that's, exactly what you're saying. That's what we kind of thought was going on before. But then we had these spirits that were coming across, and they were able to speak across all the channels. So it wasn't using the chatter on each channel. It was actually using something on top. And a lot of times when we're helping new recruits listen to a ghost box and kind of learn how to listen, we tell them a lot of times when you're listening for something that's actually over top of the chatter. You'll hear the chatter underneath, but you're listening for that thing that doesn't quite fit. It's kind of up and above.
When you say chatter, are you referring to white noise?
It's white noise, but it's also radio chatter. I mean, in a shack hack,
when you do pick up the channels, okay.
You get static. You get a lot of static because you hear the staticky stations. But every once in a while, you'll hit a band, and you might get a syllable out of the station before it flips through. But you're never going to get like a whole word or a couple words out of it.
I've gotten sentences. That was a while back.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can get some sentences. Order from Papa John's Pizza.
Yeah, I've gotten sentences in direct response to some questions. It was, me and Roger were just talking about how eventually I'm going to plug in a way to do my audio and evidence to play and feed into these interviews, because it would be really interesting to discuss. Is there any way you guys can do that maybe later on? Because we do have 2 hours. Maybe turn it on and let us hear how it works. And
yeah. As a matter of fact, I can probably get a box from somewhere, and we
Okay.
can do it. We also, I don't know if you have the ability to play the videos. I mean, we actually do have some videos that we could show. Especially the message from John is so clear, and you know, John was one of the spirits that actually was able to speak in full sentences across the spectrum for us. You know, so if we have the ability to do that, that would be good.
Yeah, interesting.
I can play a video, but nobody hears it for some reason.
Okay.
So I don't know why. It's an app that's actually in the Google Hangout that lets you play one, but whenever I did that, nobody heard it. So
Okay.
I don't know why they even bothered to have
We
it.
will figure it out. Yes. we will.
Yeah, there might be an option in here that allows you to do like a screen share, and I might be able to do something with that.
You can do a screen share.
Yeah, because if you do a screen share and then I grab my other screen and then play a video and then play it loud enough, it'll probably be totally out of sync, but you know, you might be able to hear it.
Great.
I never had that through a screen share, but yeah, you can do that.
Yeah, let me. I'll step away for just a second. I will grab a box so that way we can play it at some point.
Okay, cool.
I'll be right
Thank you. Bebop into chat and look around real quick. That's very fascinating what's been said so far. I'm really, really curious to see how this box works in conjunction with the boxes that I'm familiar with.
Yeah, and we've
This will be
we've bought a couple of commercial boxes to try, and it's funny because different members of our team like different boxes. We actually had one box that had a much slower scan rate, and one of our team likes it, and then I can't remember what Sean, do you remember what the professional box we bought was?
Yeah, the PSB7, I believe it was. Yeah.
And
It's funny. That's like one of the most popular boxes, and I can't
it's
stand
one
it.
I have. Yeah.
yeah,
I can't stand that box.
Yeah. I love them.
Yeah. Well, see, there you go.
Yeah.
Preference.
To each his own, right?
Exactly.
it is, and we've learned that. Like the Shack Hack that we use, that's like our golden, Shack Hack. We love it, but if somebody else in our group listens to it, they don't like it because they're tuned to this other box. And we just learned that, people like different devices and they can sync with that device, and that's great.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this one and see how it works and everything. So thank you so much for doing it.
Yeah.
Man, wait.
And before we get started, one of the questions that I saw in chat, and I said we'd get into it later, and we'll probably talk about it even more, is, have we ever had a ghost box and then have a second ghost box that are talking, and saying the same things? And the answer is yes, but funny enough, when we've done that, a lot of times when they're talking, they'll say the same question or they'll say the same answer, but it'll be a different way. Like one box may say yes, and the other one says affirmative. And they're within a second of each other. And remember, both listeners can't hear each other, but they line up. But the weirdest thing that we've run into is when the ghost boxes start talking to each other. And we've had that happen before. Like you're picking up a conversation, and one box is listening to one person, this other box is listening to another person, and you're just sitting here just listening to these two entities talking.
I have had that actually. I've caught spirit to spirit conversations through one before, and that is fascinating.
Yeah, I would recommend that if you get out in the field and you have the opportunity to run multiple ghost boxes, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
My puppy wants him to be right back.
All right. Okay, so Roger, what I did is I actually grabbed the ghost box audio from our last investigation, and it's because I'm in the basement, so I wouldn't be able to really do much with the box down here, but I can play the audio from one whenever you want. So whenever you're ready to do that, I can do that.
Okay, if you want to screen share that and see if it'll work, I think it should.
Oh, it's this will be just a clip of what the audio would sound like. It wouldn't
I'm
actually
gonna
be
stick
one of
around
our
for this one.
videos. Yeah, it wouldn't be one of the videos. So I'm not sure what you're about to hear.
Okay.
I have no clue. So I'll let it rip.
Dang it.
See that turn set.
And
So didn't really hear a whole lot there, I'm sure. Ironically, actually, I did hear a couple things in here. Let me try another spot. Let's see what we come up with. Turn this a little bit. So as a listener, that's what you would hear, and you'd hear that for about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you do hear something, you have to say exactly what it is that you hear.
Well, that is a lot more quieter than, say, the SB7. You know, where it's the very screechy white noise. So the box that you guys have worked on doesn't have all that static stuff, or because I didn't hear it if it did.
Yeah, it does actually have. I mean, it's got a lot of static and all that. I think that you know, my speakers make it sound a little lower than what it normally is. But yeah, I mean, there's the high end of the white noise in it. Yeah, you can hear that.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right.
All right, and then what I'll do also is I'll see if I can grab a video from one of our YouTube videos.
Perfect.
That ought to be interesting.
Come on, baby. You need to go out. Yes, what?
okay, what are we working on here?
I'll see if I can get one of our videos from specifically the message from John, and try to do a screen share to see if that'll work.
Yeah, that was one of our first video, not the first, but it was when we were first getting involved in the double blind ghost box.
Oh, I found it. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, I'll see if I can do a screen share on this thing. Okay. Screen share. All right, let me know when you're ready.
Let her go.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how it goes. And there you go. That's the end of that. All right. So I have no idea if you were able to hear any of that.
Yes.
Well, you can
Okay.
catch you some pieces. Some of it's kind of
Yeah.
common, but
Yeah. So if you check out the actual video, it's he basically said that that God wouldn't allow evil, and that He warned them for 5,000 years, and then He said that you have found them today, and He said if you help them find faith, I will deliver them by Christ and bring them home. Thank you. And at the time we took it as a grain of salt, and the rest is history. That was the moment when things changed for us.
Wow. Wow.
that's just wild.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny too. One of the things that we get, and Darren asked the question on the chat. Who is John and why is he so strong? And there's a lot to this that we don't understand. I mean, we've dealt with this for, I have no idea how many years we're looking at now, but for many years, and still even today we really don't. We just scratch the surface when it comes to all this. I mean, we don't know who John really is. He's never really taken the time to, pass us his business card, if you will. And we don't understand why he does it so strong. Why his voice comes across so much stronger than any of the others. But,
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about John, and we mention him several times throughout the book. He did say that he was a high priest. There are people who have done some research on possibilities of him. Kim Payne, who is on our team, she believes that it's John the Baptist, and the reason being is that, from what I understand, John the Baptist was actually the chosen high priest by the people, not Caiaphas. I found that pretty interesting. And ironically, we didn't really think too much about this until another friend of ours, Johnny Eldridge, he said, it's interesting that a high priest is the only person that can go all the way into the Holy of Holies and also go all the way out into the outer courts to the Gentiles. So basically what he's saying is he's the only man that can go from earth all the way up to God and back again and intercede for a person, which is exactly what a high priest would do. Now, Christ is the ultimate high priest, but John is performing that exact role. He would come down and he would help minister to the Spirit and then bring them right straight over to home, which is exactly what he said he was going to do.
I'd like to iterate on that, if I could, just for a second. Prior to Christianity, I would say most people were some sort of pagan, and there are high priests and high priestesses, and they were referred to as such. So, to my knowledge, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole Christianity term didn't really come about until after his death. So for John to come through as a high priest would make perfect sense, because he would have been looked at as a pagan high priest before the Christianity religion became as such. You following me?
Yeah,
for me, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And whatever religion, he is proclaiming Jesus when he announced himself, but also in the religion of Judaism before Christianity, they were called high priests. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. I mean, regardless of whatever the religion would be, you could be an Indian
Right.
high priest.
The Mayans had high priests.
Exactly.
Right. Had high priests. Just about any ancient civilization out there had high priests.
Sure. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's interesting, though, that John the Baptist, if per se it were him.
Yeah.
was
We
the
don't
one.
know. We don't know, but a lot of people think it is.
You know, if you could actually talk to the person that quote unquote here baptized Jesus Christ, that would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I want to talk about that too. A lot of people say that you're not allowed to even talk to the dead, and
Right.
and so that's one of the biggest complaints that people have, or at least Christians would have a hard time dealing with what it is that we do. But in reality, it is consulting the dead. And that is, we're not here to actually have a conversation with John the Baptist. I'm not here to have a conversation with John. I'm actually not even here to have a conversation with Jesus, as much as I would love to have a conversation with Jesus. We are here to identify what is the spirit. First of all, is the spirit here? What type of spirit is it? And then we deal with it appropriately. So I'm actually not here to have a conversation or ask advice. So every piece of information that we have, we collect over time through observations. So we don't go and say, well, explain to me, Jimmy, what your experience is, because I'm curious about the afterlife. That we don't do that. That's where we draw the line in the sand. You know, that's where we say that we do not consult the dead. It is forbidden. But it is not forbidden to talk to the dead. If you talked to the dead, the disciples themselves would have sinned, and Jesus would have sinned, because he talked to demons, who were technically exactly what we talk to, demons and dead people.
Right. I'm pretty familiar with the Bible, and I can't quote chapter and verse on this, but I know it's in there, and it says the dead are dead and know nothing. So it kind of makes you wonder if you're really talking to the dead.
Well, there are a lot of theories around that as well. Some people believe that, and this is really tough. This is one of the challenges from David on our team, is the ghost box actually connecting with spirits of the afterlife, or is it interacting with us? In other words, are we
psychically? Yes.
Yes. Are we projecting it and creating it?
That is the theories, yeah.
So there are a lot of twists and turns around that, because I can't prove one way or the other. You know, is that true or not? I don't know.
If we could, then we wouldn't be
exactly.
know what we're so
right.
You know,
it wouldn't be a mystery.
Yeah, right. One day we will be. We'll be able to one day.
Yeah,
I believe that.
True.
Okay. Now, you were talking about how you present yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the part that I liked is where it said that we are completely transparent. So explain to everybody what you mean when you say we are completely transparent about our work. What does that involve?
Well, I mean, basically, our goal, you know, for a long time, before space became an issue, when we first started, we actually uploaded all of our raw video feeds, audio feeds, everything from the whole night, until it came to a point where we just have too much. I mean, it's, you know, we've got terabytes of stuff now. And we basically had to stop doing that. But we had all our raw data, and our idea was, if somebody thought we were making this stuff up, they could go back to the raw files and do all the work themselves of extracting out, you know, the evidence themselves, you know, to see that, you know, we didn't inject this. This is what we caught. You know, our goal, you know, to be honest with you, we never really cared whether, you know, this may sound a little rough, but we never really cared if people really believed this or not. I mean, initially, especially initially, our
Right.
goal was to prove it to ourselves, to determine ourselves what in the world is going on here.
Right.
And after we did that, we got in such a response. We started putting stuff on YouTube, and we got such a response there that it came to a point where, like, okay, they like what we're seeing, they like what they're seeing. That's fine, but we're never going to come to a point where we're going to fabricate evidence.
That's right.
We have run into cases before where we don't get anything. I mean, it happens, and we've debunked a lot of stuff. And we show those videos just as well. We see a video. We caught one time something that was floating in midair, and Sawn, through the video, was able to tell that was just a mosquito that had happened to take off too close to the camera and flew off, and we got to show that. And so it's just, we want to be as transparent as we can, because to us, it's about what the truth is, not building ourselves up or hey, look what we can do. It had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It has more to do with the science of it.
Going back to the original investigations, Dan and I originally said to each other, I'm willing to allow my science and my theology to be rocked. And I really truly mean that when I went into this, I was going to just allow the situation to reveal itself to me. And I was willing to say, you know what, I could be totally wrong about this from a religious perspective. Say, if I find something that shakes my theology, I'm willing to say, okay, because I believe in the scientific method. And if it's handled in the right way, it'll prove itself out. So when we say we're transparent, if I got shocked, I'm going to show the world I got shocked, that I was wrong. I didn't know the answer to that.
I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's
All
awesome.
good teams should be transparent. They all should.
Yeah, I agree.
So I did want to go back to your statement, though, is that the dead know nothing. And as weird as it's going to sound, it's true. The statement isn't that the great fear is that when the lights go out, that nothing happens. In other words, literally the lights go out and consciousness stops. Okay, so there is nothing. Okay, and that's not what it's saying. It's saying that the dead know nothing. The reason you do not consult the dead is because they don't know everything. They're only able to explain what they're experiencing, and if you understand the world that they're in, you won't trust what they say, because it's like a dream state. They're literally creating the world that's around them. So if you ask them, what color is the sky? And they come back and say, well, the sky here is red. You would be dumb enough to think, oh, okay, the sky in the afterlife is red. But in reality, you ask another one, and he's going to say, nope, the sky's black, man. I've never seen red.
I
So
totally believe that we manifest whatever afterlife we go to.
Yeah,
based on
absolutely.
our system
Yeah, I mean, the
as
evidence
while we were alive.
That's
So,
exactly right. The evidence is showing that. So the dead know nothing to us would be interpreted as saying it's very dumb to go and ask the dead for advice, because it's relative to them, to their experience. The
That makes sense.
universe,
Yeah, I get
the
it.
entire universe is crafted just for them, for their experience, not
Well,
for me, not for you.
each of the
Okay.
spirit
Okay.
sees things in a different way.
Oh yeah. The thing is that the message of the universe for you would be crafted specifically for you,
Yeah.
perfectly for you. So if you heard the message from someone else, that's a universe that was crafted for that person specifically for universal purposes.
Yeah. I'm very much a Buddhist and a spiritualist, so I understand perfectly
So
what
you
you just
get that? Yeah, you get that point. Yeah.
So now I have to ask you a question. If in the afterlife, everyone has their own perspective of what's going on.
Yep.
And it's all different.
Yep.
So when you're conversing, and I use this term lightly, conversing with an entity through the ghost box or whatever means you're using,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now I'm going to bring up, and we'll come back about this later because I've got something I want to ask you about it. But there's one thing that I read about where you guys were led to an unmarked grave.
Yes. The F test. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Now, if everybody's different and always, so what if you had like 2 or 3 spirits coming in, and one said it's over here, the other one, no, it's over there. Well,
They
it's
do.
a red thing over here.
They do. They do.
How do you know which one to follow?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Man, I kid you not. Sometimes Dave and I both have complained about this. Sometimes on the box, there'll be so many talking. You're like, look, everybody needs to back off and choose one person to speak for you all. We had to do that in Maryland. I mean, there were so many people that were talking. It was insane. And it was a very important situation for them. We haven't even posted this, but it was significant. But yeah, you're right. Who do you listen to? You know, again, the F test was an experiment that we did, which honestly is right there on the line. Okay, because you're asking specific information to say, listen, I'm trying to see, can you tell me where where this thing is? Okay, can you get us there? And you have to try to find out, okay, go left, go right, and you have to figure out who to listen to. And it just takes training. I mean, if you go off on the wrong tangent, yeah, you're going to end up in a ditch somewhere.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, if you got 2 or 3 of them telling you where to go, you can be leading you around in a circle.
They'll rock you right in a circle.
And they're sitting over there going, look at you.
That's exactly right. Well, I mean, the worst case scenario is that if you're listening to them and they literally put you into a ditch, or they get you to drop down an elevator shaft.
Right, and that would be one that would bother me.
That's why you don't. That's why you don't. You have a team, and you don't consult the dead.
We're in an asylum somewhere with a elevator, and they're like, "Yeah, go here, turn right there.
Yeah,
right there, go get that." You know.
Yeah.
And
as a listener who can't hear anything and can't see anything, you really depend on your team to help you go in the right direction. And
okay, and that's another thing since you brought that up.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's just say you're listening. You've got this thing over your head where you can't see.
Yeah.
Okay, your eyes are shut or whatever, you can't see.
Yeah.
How did they lead you around out there with the rest of them when you're doing this?
Oh, as a listener, we've had a situation where we have a leader. So, like Amy will grab me around the arm and just kind of help me walk. A lot of times we'll just stand in a place and just, put your head down, and then, when it's time to come and tell you to move, they just tap you on the shoulder and say, hey man, we're going to move over here. There's nothing going on. Patrick Burke actually came up with a really cool idea. He had a laser pointer, and I would have my head down and just look on the ground, and when he was ready, he would shine the light, and then he would say, follow the light, buddy. The red light through the woods. Yeah, and he led me into the middle of the street, and the cars go flying by. Yeah.
Around out there with your eyes closed.
Yeah.
You're walking around.
It can be dangerous.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, there's a well there. Ah!
Yeah, exactly.
But that's some wild stuff. Getting back here. And see how things can kind of sway off, but it's all interesting.
I can see how you can take up 8 hours in no time.
We're going to jump into a case study here. Gettysburg experiment.
Yeah, you can be on.
I think it's funny how you had a couple that assumed you were a psychic just because you had your head covered up.
Yeah.
Okay, now that's number one. I just think that's funny. Well, he must be a psychic. He's got a hood over his head answering things that you're asking.
Yeah, that was a really great experience. Dan, you ought to tell them about that, because that's when you were really shocked about how Patrick. I mean, nothing phases Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick is a battlefield explorer. He does a lot of paranormal investigations on battlefield, and he's a historian, so he knows a lot of the details of the Civil War battles. And Sean and I don't. I mean, I know about the Civil War. I studied a little bit, but as far as like, you know, all the histories and what the battles and how, I have no idea. So we're on the battlefield with Patrick and kind of letting Patrick lead. Sean's blind. So he's listening. I'm basically a cameraman at this point because I'm letting Patrick basically be the questioner. So he's asking battle-specific questions. Basically, at this point, you know, Patrick's kind of new to the whole Ghost Box experience, so he was kind of trying to trip the box up. You know, let's see if we can trick the box into, you know, giving me a false response. And what was crazy was he would be asking the questions, and he would say a false statement. He would say, and I can't, you know, I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember exactly what it said, but you know, he would say, okay, these guys, you guys came down here and did this, right? And the spirits would come back on the box and saying, Burke, you're trying to trick us here. No, that's not what happened at all. And they would explain what actually happened, you know, which I'm sitting here going, that's crazy. But the wildest thing was they were trying to talk, and Patrick kind of interrupted and said, did you have to come back for your commander? Where's your commander at? Did you have to come back for your commander? Did he get killed? And they're talking, and suddenly like, oh, and I can't remember the guy's name. It's like, oh, David or whatever. Yeah, he died right over here. And Patrick looked over at me and said, yeah, that's true. His name, he couldn't quite remember his name. He went back, and his name was the name that was given. But he said, yeah, he actually died right here, and they had to come back and get it and drag it back across. And I'm sitting here the whole time going, what? That's crazy. What? You know, and Patrick just keeps going. You know, so it's kind of a funny experience.
Yeah. So the whole time that was happening, though, I've got my earphones in and I've got a hoodie on. You know, I can't hear any of these questions. So as Patrick is saying all this stuff, I'm answering him like we're having a conversation. And then there were these observers around, and they were like, yeah, he's psychic. How's he able to do that? And Dan's explaining, no, he can't hear a thing that he's saying. And they're like, what? How's he answering the questions? I'm like, that's exactly right. How is he answering the questions, I might ask?
I think that's just neat, though. But I was going to say, explain how it's done and what were some of the questions about the battle that you actually got responses to, where they said, yeah, this is what had happened here, or, you know, how many people died, or, you know, what the battle was like, and kind of stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, there was, so in Patrick's book, he's a Ghost Soldiers of Gettysburg, and I highly recommend getting that book.
I have that book.
Oh, you do good. Yeah, there you go. That's the one.
Yeah, here it is.
You know, a really unique situation happened in this. So I'm actually a questioner, and I have two listeners. So I have Amy and Amanda. They were in period clothes, so they were trying to. They were just out there with period clothes with the ghost box on. We're asking questions and all that kind of stuff. And then at this one point at Gettysburg, there were some. Oh my gosh! I hope it was. There were some soldiers coming. I want to say it's Union soldiers. I'm so bad at history.
I think they were, yeah.
Okay. I'm so bad at history. It's terrible. Anyway, that's why I have Patrick. But anyway, these Union soldiers were coming across the field there, and immediately the ghost boxes go, engage the enemy, fire, fire, fire. And then they were like, the box says, no, don't engage them, you know, and hold back, don't engage them. And they're like, no, we gotta go, get them. And I was like, no. And I thought to myself, as a questioner, I was thinking, well, that's insane. What kind of a leader would say, you know, don't go attack the enemy? And so I didn't think anything of it. Well, we get this to Patrick, and Patrick says, no, that's exactly what happened. That the leader, and you have to read the book to find out the details of this because I'm butchering the crap out of it. But the leader did actually say, do not engage the army, because he understood that if they did, they would have been slaughtered. And he said, don't engage. So historically speaking, me not knowing anything about the whole scenario, I said, this is silly, but the history came right out through the box. I didn't know any of it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing.
Wow. So that kind of leads into a theory that a lot of investigators have, is that like residual energy just tends to repeat itself. So the ghost box pretty much proved that.
Oh, absolutely. At the exact same thing, the same place we were at the Triangle Field. Now I can talk to this one. We were down in the Triangle Field in the woods area, and through the box, you could literally hear the cannon fire going through on the ghost box. And it was, Amy on our team is a historian, and she's heard cannon fire. She knew exactly what this was. It was something like a whatever howitzer or whatever it is, the exact cannon that was used back then. We were hearing it clear as day on the ghost box, and you could play it back. We have it on our YouTube, but the history was repeating itself, literally, and they were going through the motions right there on the box, and you could hear it.
Fascinating.
Amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, it really is. It gives you the willy.
We had
other things. The reason why we do this.
Yeah. What was it? Dan, what was that place we went to? It was the Graham House.
Which one?
I think it was the Graham House in 1777. They were killed by the Shawnee Indians.
The Graham House, in West Virginia.
Yeah, so in 1777, these Indians, Shawnee Indians, attacked this family, a colonial family, at the house, and in the box, they were literally going through the entire battle of being attacked and everything, and you could hear the whole thing all going. I mean, you could hear them saying, like, pull the shades, close the doors, prepare yourself. It was insane. I mean, you can hear history repeating itself like a record player.
Doggies. Quit. Shh. Thank you.
See, I love all the civil. I went to Parker's Crossroads battlefield recently, and I love everything Civil War. Okay, and I'm not in real good health. Everybody knows this, so I can't walk long distances. I have to stop and sit and rest up, and then start off again and go so far. But my team leader and I, Dustin Ford, stopped there on the way back from old South Pittsburgh. And I videotaped this loop. There's like a loop that goes like, I think it's about a mile, some odd, something other. It's all a little asphalt trail, right, that goes around. And I videoed the whole thing. And when I came around the far side, I was coming up on where they had the northern burial ground, where they would bury the Yankees that died there.
Okay.
And just as I was coming up on that, I captured 2 musket shots on my video camera, on the audio.
Wow.
Plain as day. That's the only thing I got out of the whole thing, but that was just freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Coming right up on that burial site, probably within, I want to say 300 yards maybe. So, because the loop made a turn right there, and the burial site was like right off the curve of the loop right here. And then you had another trail that went the other way, and it was a whole lot more to it that I didn't get to see. But and I thought it was odd that I was coming right up on that, because the burial site is in a little wooded area right where that picket fence goes down that they hid behind when the Confederates had them blocked in. And that's where all the shooting would have been going on at. And also, it kind of sounded like, but I can't guarantee 100%, like there was return shots that were way off in the distance. And they were really low, so everybody, that listened to the video couldn't hear them.
Yeah.
But, it'd be like you had the really definite one that went,
Wow.
They would understand. And then you had these ones that went, really low. And there was like 4 or 5 of those. And I'm thinking, like, they're shooting at them and they're shooting back. And this is going on right here while I'm walking up this trail.
Yeah, I can tell you that I really enjoy going out with Patrick because he can take history and make it alive, and then on top of that, being a paranormal investigator, on top of that, it's amazing.
Yeah,
it's a whole nother perspective, really.
I'd love to get together with him and be somewhere on a battlefield, like Shiloh or something.
Oh yeah,
that'd be awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
it is.
I didn't go there as an investigator. This was back when my kids were little, And like I said, I love some more stuff, so I just went there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Fort Donaldson where they had the big cannons on the river and all that. And the one place over in Kentucky, and I never can remember the name of that. The battle actually happened on the other side of the river, but the hospital was on this side of the river. Don't make a lot of sense to me. They had to change.
Just me. I live in Kentucky. It makes so
But we're gonna put the hospital over here. So once you get a shot, swim.
Exactly. You gotta swim all the way across over there to the hospital. If you make it.
I just thought that was really good. And of course, they had to change across there. You get shot.
Oh
Hey,
man.
my leg float up. We'll swim with one leg. Why would you put the hospital over here and everybody's fighting over there? It don't make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, a lot of things probably didn't make sense back then. When all this was going on. So yeah, I mean, I thought when you guys did this thing, on the actual battleground, I thought that was really neat that you got those kind of responses.
Yeah, I mean, we've done several different battlegrounds. I mean, Gettysburg. A lot of the Gettysburg footage is actually on the YouTube. We actually did the Battle of Cloyd's Mountain as well with Amy and Patrick, and that stuff is not online. As a matter of fact, I was working on it when we actually got our last investigation over at the theater, and the footage and what happened there was so amazing that I stopped everything, and I've been working on this footage over here at from the theater.
What was Cloyd's Mountain? What did you call it?
The Battle of Cloyd's Mountain. Yeah, it's in Giles County,
Virginia.
Yeah, Virginia. But I'm trying to figure out exactly where. Dublin? Is it Dublin? I believe it's in Dublin. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, it was and that's the thing is we didn't either, and so but apparently it was a very bloody battle, and because it was happening at the time of Gettysburg and all that kind of stuff, it was kind of overshadowed because of the other stuff. So when we got there, it was very interesting because we were doing the two teams with two different methodologies coming together to compare notes kind of thing. They went off and they did their thing and we did ours, and both teams came back with clear bloody battle. This was very bloody. It was so bad, and comparing the notes, it was right on the money. So I mean, the downside to what we do is that it takes a long time to process everything. I have a lot of cameras, and we have a lot of footage to go through and compile all that, and so I kid you not, we did a 9-minute video just the other day, and it took 48 hours just to render the video, and it took 3 weeks to get the 9 minutes of footage cut to say that's what I want to use.
Right.
Yeah.
You guys planning on going out to like Tombstone or any place like that?
Well, I mean, we do. We're going to try to travel all over the place. If I can get out with Patrick to do the battlefields, I would love to do that. One of the things that we're doing right now is 360. We call it paranormal panorama.
Yeah.
That's where you can get the 360 degrees, all
cool.
around. So no matter where we are on the battlefield, it's better to do it during the day so you can see everywhere. But go into a battlefield and be able to see in 360 degrees all around you. That's pretty amazing. So hopefully if we can get out and do that, that'd be good.
Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
I had some on the tip of my tongue, and now I can't remember what it was.
Well, is there any other type of equipment that you guys like to use alongside of your ghost box that kind of, other than a ghost box, that kind of ping off each other or help you, what's the word I'm looking for? Darn it, that's contagious, Roger. Help you,
Validate what
I guess, prove or validate, the boxes.
Oh yeah, we we still use a standard EMF detector that everybody uses. It's an EMF/K2. We do have a millimeter in the group as well, and we utilize those quite a bit because ghosts seems to like those. They seem to enjoy playing with those. We always give them a toy to play with, and a lot of times they do coincide. Actually, that was one of the reasons why we continued using the ghost box. The first time we used the ghost box, we were asking for responses on the K2, making it go off.
Yeah.
And we were getting responses in the radio at the same time. So that was what really piqued our interest. We were like, okay, we got something here, And we also use digital recorders. I was telling Roger before we went on air that in our team, all people that's on the team have a personal recorder. That actually belongs to the team, or belongs to Sawn actually, because he does most of the tech stuff. But and everybody carries one of those recorders, so we have audio all over the place. And Amy, and I think Dave to some degree. Dave is one of our lead investigators, and Amy does. She's like a master of EVPs. She'll take most of that audio and comb through them, and find those tidbits and those EVPs that we missed. And all that usually really coincides. One of the most amazing, things with that is we had there's a video. It's called A Matter of Faith, I think, isn't it, Sean? Paris Cemetery. Yeah. It's called A Matter of Faith. It's actually probably one of the first true successes we had with the Ghost Box in a crossing over scenario. It's a really incredible video. But in that, we did come across a demon. And the demon was quite irritated that we were there. And at one point, in the ghost box, he was trying to get us to leave, and he got flustered. And you could actually hear it in the ghost box, and he just, in a real loud voice, he goes, "Walk!" Well, when he did that, we actually heard in the corner of the cemetery a voice come out of the woods that yelled, "Walk!" really loud, coming out of the woods, and it all coincided with the box. And so it was really interesting. It was an interesting, thing that we picked up, and of course the recorders picked it up, and we were able to put it in the video.
Right. So, good. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the K2 as well. I like to coincide with everything else.
Well, I like there's two different types of the K2. The older one, it had like the three lights that went straight up and down. Now I prefer the one with the lights across the top.
Right.
A little bit more to go with when you're trying to determine, if you have a yes or no answer, or if you're using that to communicate. Or you can say, "Hey, look, I want you, if you believe this or you do that, I want you to light up a certain color light."
That's right.
It goes to that color.
Yeah, we have one of those too. Yep. That's a good one. Yep. Yeah, the last investigation that we just did over at Paris Theater, Amy's actually the owner of that, her and her husband. Yeah, let me tell you, that place is haunted. It's all get out.
That room, I may come and visit.
Yeah, you gotta check this place out. And you don't have to go very far. You just sit right there, and all these stuff happens. But we actually had the EMF detectors. I was just going over the video this morning where Dan was saying, ask a question and the EMF detector would go off. And not once, but like several times, like 3 times in a row. He would say, "Hey, is this Ed?" And it would go beep, beep. He said, "Do you remember Edith?" And it goes beep, 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 beep. "Yeah, I remember Edith." I was like, "What?" what? You know, so as a listener, you know, I'm plugged in. I can't hear or see any of that, right? So I'm always, you know, I come out of the experience going, how was that? And they're all like, you know,
Well,
I'm like, oh, is that good, huh? You know, and then I go through the investigation, the evidence review, and I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Then I'm texting Dan like, man, that was great.
Yeah,
She's like, I know.
No, dude. No, I mean, you guys should be taking turns, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and we try, and in all honesty, we try to do that, but we found that some people are better listeners than others.
Yeah.
Well,
You know, I don't listen well. I've done it, and I can pick up things, but Sean is so much better at it than I am. So we seem to have people that are better at it. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dave
Dave
is
he's getting really good.
you know, because well, hey, I want to see this. You know.
Oh, you mean do it? I don't know if I can do it. I'm in the basement. That's the problem.
No, I'm saying when you're in a place, alternate listening between your teammates where you
Oh,
don't
yeah.
miss out on everything.
Yep.
You know, what you would have seen or you know whatever.
Well, and two, you know, it's important, and I don't think we've mentioned this. We actually record the audio of the full Ghost Box.
Yep.
And so when you watch our videos, you actually can hear the Ghost Box clip, you know, in its entirety. You know, where, you know, if we pick out what it said, you could actually listen for yourself to see, is that really what I'm hearing or not?
Is that what's really said?
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes it's kind of smushy. Yes, there's some matrixing there, because, I mean, did they actually say Sarah or did they say Sahara? You know, you don't know. But,
Right.
you know, you have to take the full context of the conversation and say, okay, probably this is what they said. And that's why we show both you have the audio, you have the text that's on there, and then you have the responses from the listener. So sometimes they don't match 100%.
Well, if they said Sarah or Sahara, it would to me it'd be like, well, what kind of question you ask? Like,
Right. What was the
have you
question
ever
that
been to the desert, Sahara? You know?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, there was actually
what's your name, Sarah?
yeah, exactly. We had there was a scenario where that exactly happened, and it was Kim Payne. They had asked something, and they said settlers. They said like what shirt was on her shirt or something like that, and they said settlers, and it was interesting because she was saying she had a Steelers shirt on,
Right.
and they said settlers. And it was like, oh, very close. Yeah, very neat.
Well, if they were from a time period when settlers was a big thing, then they may have automatically assumed that's what it says. Hey, you know, we're talking about settlers there. Or maybe spirits can't spell very well. Who knows?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
You know, actually, that's a really good point because, you know, being educated, they might not have been able to really read.
exactly.
Yeah.
So they're just kind of trying to, you know, they look at something and they
Yeah. I didn't even think of that.
you know, see it how they see it. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, you got to think about those too. When you're talking to spirits, depending on the time period and depending on the location, might affect how well educated the spirit was.
Well,
and I would assume that they would be the same in the afterlife, right?
No,
They ain't gonna all of a sudden go to college because they're in the afterlife.
yeah, I mean, you bring up a really good point because, you know, we've been to different locations, and not only that, you have the different levels of time in a location. So you might be talking, you know, you might be on a battlefield. Next thing you know, you're talking to somebody who passed away in the 70s, and they're like, hey, you know,
Yeah.
I need to talk to whoever. You know, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm not here for you. That's terrible to say, but I'm here for the people, you know, of this time frame, right?
Oh, yeah.
Then, or another situation that we had was we would be at one location. We were hearing Native Americans and we were hearing French people that were French, and we were like, "How's that possible?" And we were on Dave's property at the time, and apparently there was a giant French settlement that was there, and we were literally hearing the French, and we, none of us spoke French, but we were getting it in the box.
Well, I mean, I believe, and once again, only speaking for myself, I believe that there's different layers. Like you said, time. So we might have a layer upon layer upon layer of different things. A good way for me to try to explain this to maybe someone who doesn't understand is think about, say, in Iowa, and you've got a little man plowing his field, and he's out there plowing his field, and that's what he's doing in the afterlife as all he knows to do. And then they put a Toys R Us on that same field. And then the veil gets real thin and they pop. Next thing you know, the man's plowing his field bumps into a little kid. They see each other for a second, and so the guy plowing his field maybe thinks he sees a ghost. The little girl, sees a man plowing the field. But what it is layer upon layer that bump into each other. So
Exactly
to me,
right.
that would explain your French, Indian,
Well,
everything all at once.
There was a time, I think, during the French and Indian Wars where they were all kind of in the same location having a battle, So you could have French over here, Indian over here, clashing.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
In the same spot, okay? So you may have both speaking to you from that same location.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, what would be interesting is if you knew that this is where the French-Indian War took place at, and you could say, okay, tell us about the battle. What went on here with this battle?
Yep.
Yeah, what really went on, because our history books aren't right. So, be right back.
Well, I mean, if you go back into the olden Western times, now I remember studying about that stuff when I was in school about the French and Indian Wars. So,
Well, I mean, that's when we were in Gettysburg, one of the cases that we were to investigate was the truth about where something had happened. I don't know the details about it, but that's, Patrick wanted to find out exactly where this thing took place. And he was zoning in using the ghost box and all kinds of different methods to find it, so for us, in supernatural media, what we do is more of a ministry. Yes, we do paranormal investigations and all that kind of stuff. We help people with demonic activity that's happening in their house and all that kind of stuff. So all that still applies. But there are people in our team like Patrick who do what we do for historical purposes, to investigate the history and all that kind of stuff. And there's that's what they do. That's their job. Yep.
trying to see, jump over here real quick, make sure we ain't missing questions.
Yeah, I know people got questions. I don't know how Dan is like able to talk and type at the same time.
Yeah, I've been chatting.
Yeah.
I got monitors over here, just like,
Okay. I didn't know if anybody was over there catching questions, so I figured I better jump over and take a quick look.
Yeah.
Now we're geez. I have a PSP 7. That's what the only ghost box that I've used. And I was saying earlier, I think I was telling Dan I wasn't just real thrilled about how it all worked. Of course, I never tried it the way you guys do.
Okay.
Okay, so one of my questions is, and I have one of these, and I'd like to try some of this stuff. How would you recommend that I start if I was gonna try to do something like this?
Somebody is already out in the field. Obviously you need more than one person, which, in our line of thinking, you should always have somebody with you anyway, for number one, for collaboration purposes, make sure, hey, I was here and he was here and we both saw the same thing kind of thing.
Right.
But two, the question and listener thing is important. Obviously you can't be blind to the question if you're the one asking the question. So, having that second person. So really, from a very simplistic mindset, all you really need to do is plug your headphones into the box and just listen away.
Yeah.
To do what we do, we have very simple demonstrations in the book. You've got the book. It really shows how to connect everything up and how we extract audio and all that is kind of explained there. But so what we do, and what we'd advise you to do with that is just.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if someone were going to start doing this type of stuff, they would need to start out basic, and then kind of build their way up to where you guys are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to, so before we get too far into that, like, how do you get started? So let's say you're now listening to us and you're saying, oh, wow, this sounds like great. I want to get into this. So I want to start by giving you the disclaimer on this. It's dangerous. It is, and I will say it the way I think it needs to be said. It is the bell that cannot be unrung. When you open that door, you don't know who's going to be on the other side. So it is literally like an internet chat room. You don't know who it is that you're talking to.
Right.
So be on your guard.
Well,
okay?
That's basically the thing is a Ouija board, though.
And that's the saying. I was just talking to my family last night because we were watching The Conjuring 2, which, by the way, was not scary at all. But anyway, but there were some pretty cool spots in there. But we were talking about the Ouija board, and I said, how is that any different than a ghost box? And I said there really isn't any difference. That ultimately, at the end of the day, it is kind of the same thing. You're connecting to the other side, and what is it that you're doing with this? Are you opening this door and now you're consulting the dead for whatever reason? I personally say you're playing with fire. Dan and I early on understood that there are dangers associated with this. It may cost our lives, and we accept that. So then people say, well, do you recommend other people doing what you do? And we say no, because you have to consider that the consequences it can destroy your family, it can destroy your reputation. I mean, Dan almost we've had to give up certain things because of what it is that we do, but ghost boxes can be very dangerous. You don't understand what could potentially be on the other side. Could be a serious demon. And for example, we have an old lady. This old lady, she is communicating with this little child, and she thinks this is a little child, and she's got little child issues. And before you know it, she's a demon basically controlling her life.
Yeah. And it gets what's the word? Really addictive too. And I think that causes a lot of issues with people as well. Once they start getting really good, like Class A EVPs coming through, or whatever you call them, Class A on the ghost box as well. It becomes addictive, and it can start controlling your life, and that's also where you can run into a lot of danger. Here I was, a 20-year veteran, thinking that my protection was strong enough that nothing could follow me, and lo and behold, got attached. And it took me a very long time to get, so nobody is protected. Nobody, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's, in our situation, and well, I'm sure we'll get into it at some point, but, in 2013, for me, in October 2013, everything changed for me personally. Mm-hmm. And it was a direct result of using the ghost box. So with that being said, that's your disclaimer. Danger, be aware of what it is that you're getting into. Don't do it alone. Do it with other people, those kinds of things. So
now, it is so scary when you have all these, you have all these shows on TV, and they glorify it and make it look so wonderful and all of that. And then you get these, I hope nobody takes offense to this, but novices who think all they need to do is just go into a haunted location and run their mouth because they saw somebody else do it.
Well,
And
I saw it on Ghost Adventures, you know. I mean, or
you know, and they really don't know what they're getting. So I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
You know, one of the rules that
Opening a door.
somebody asked me, you know, like they say they want to get into paranormal. One of the first things I tell everybody: go work with somebody that's been in it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Work with them. Learn something about what you're getting into before you go out and decide to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Because it is dangerous.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of dangers people don't realize.
Yep.
You get people will go into old houses at night, you know, that are rotten and fall through floors and all this kind of stuff. You know, because they don't think ahead. They don't have the experience to think ahead. And plus, as you stated, you know, doing things that can open doorways to things they have no clue what they're running into.
Well, and in that vein, Roger, we had a situation, and I don't remember if it's on the video or not. In a matter of faith, the demon that we ran into, you know, Sean and I, you know, we knew how to deal with the demon. You know, we both were ordained priests. We had understood it. We knew what we were doing, so we were taking care of it. Well, at the end of the moment where this thing's getting ready to leave, it asked for a host. We wanted a host. It wanted somewhere to go.
Yeah.
And you know, and at that point, we're like, no, we're not condoning that at all. You know, we're not doing that. But if somebody didn't know what they were doing, I mean, you could end up with a demon possessed person. I mean, you know, that's the reality of it. And you know, do you run into a demon everywhere you go? No, it's not like that. But if you did, you need to know what to do. I mean, you need to know the precautions to take and the things to do to prevent that from becoming a problem. You know, it's stuff like that you have to be careful of.
That was a really scary situation because, you know, we were hearing, okay, yeah, demon, and so we're like, yeah, hey Dan, this we just ran into a demon, and you know, the wind starts whipping up. This was definitely a demon, and then when it started saying host, it stunned me for a second. I was like, oh crap, I forgot about that. If we kick this thing out, now it's going to go somewhere. You know, and this was the very first time that I was out with Amy and Dave. They were just brand new to the team. I didn't know them from anybody, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I just done? I've just brought two people in here, and they're gonna go home. They've got a demon, you know. And so we started praying, obviously, and we dealt with it. But the other thing is that, you know, you got to pray over your team, you know. And I also say you never know what you're going to get into. So you go into an investigation, and everybody thinks that this might be a spirit that's a known human spirit or whatever, you know, Johnny. And next thing you know, it's not. It's a demon. It's a full-blown demon that's been masquerading as a human being, and no one knew it. And now you're in the middle of an investigation with a demon on your hands.
Exactly.
But don't you think it could happen the other way as well with you two being devout Christians? The best way to scare you would be for an entity to present itself as a demon. Isn't that possible as well?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That humans masquerade as demons, and the other way around.
Yeah,
There's a house in Dresden, Tennessee that you can actually find on the internet, and there's supposedly a portal in the upstairs bedroom. Where they claim a demon comes through. But what I've understood is that actually it's the guy that lived in the house putting himself off like a demon, scaring everybody away because he didn't want nobody in his house.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so it does work both ways, you know, and a lot of times, as you were talking about the little girl, the woman talking to the little girl, from what I've understood, and I've seen lots of different people talk about this, a demon will present themselves as a child because most of your teams have a female. The motherly instinct kicks in, right?
Yeah.
Come as a child, they will accept you.
And the elderly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially with the elderly, yeah.
So, you know, it kind of all can become like a big pot of soup, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the spirits, they're in a state where they can not only manipulate the world that's around them, but they can manipulate themselves. So whatever it is that they're in, I mean, my wife and I, when we first moved into the house that I'm in right now, the house was haunted, and we didn't know it. And we're sitting in our house, and we'd be watching television. All of a sudden, the volume would skyrocket all the way up, or it would start changing channels, and it would do it in different rooms, and the radios would come on, and the lights would flicker, and all kinds of crazy things. And then my wife went out of town, and I was sleeping, and I got up and I looked at the bottom of my foot of my bed, and I saw this little boy standing there, and I thought it was my son. I was like, Malachi, go to bed. And it didn't react, and I'm like, Malachi, go to bed. And then it disappeared. I'm like, okay. And I said, I won't be telling my wife that one. And so, but it got to the point where it was just, it was so bad that my wife and I just said, look, we need to pray over our house. We anointed the house, and everything literally stopped dead cold. Well, then once that happened, we called up the old owner and said, hey, by any chance is this house haunted? And they're like, oh yeah, that's whatever his name is. And that is the owner, the builder of the home. Their son, he was 33, and he was killed. And he was buried at the back of our yard, up in the graveyard behind this barn. And they grew up in this house. So he was comfortable as a young boy. He grew up in this house, and he was running around here on this property and just didn't realize, hey, I'm not supposed to be here. So, but he was a kid, he was masquerading as a kid, but he was in his own body. He was building the world around him, and he had his own persona as a young kid, not a 33-year-old man.
Right.
Right. I mean, yeah. A lot of people forget that their body's been cremated, buried. The fact that they can manifest through their spirit form, their energy form, to speak is just amazing. So, yeah, they can absolutely manipulate their energy into anything. And I think a lot of people forget that when they see an apparition. That is, in my opinion, that entity manifesting itself into what they want you to see, not exactly what it is. And a lot of people forget that.
Well, I mean, when I die, I don't want you to see me as a 40 or 50 or 60 or 70-year-old man. I'm just saying.
Right on. Right on.
This ain't beautiful.
I'm going to manifest into Pamela Anderson. I'm run around like Baywatch.
Like, hey.
I'm going to be the 20-year-old handsome.
Exactly, right. That's how I want you to see me.
That's what
I'm going to look like this, guys. I'm just looking like this.
I've noticed that it looks like somebody's been in chat answering questions. Do you guys have anything? We're down to about 15 minutes. Is there anything you guys want to ask in chat? Anything else?
Well, I have still have another page or so worth of stuff I was wanting to ask.
Oh, well, you go. Gotcha.
Oh, man, this show has flew by. Really, it has.
It did.
It really has. I can't believe it.
But I love it. I mean, everything's been interesting. And I knew it wouldn't. Now, going back to the ghost box here, just about everybody can say they've had experiences where, they didn't get any tangible responses at all. And then there's some where they say that they got some real good responses and all that. So what I want to know is, what makes your method of research with the ghost box more conclusive than, say, just listening to a ghost box like most people would do?
Good question.
Well, the short answer really is when it's kind of like what we talked about before. If the listener can't hear and they're giving valid responses, and basically the way that plays out is, if you've never seen our videos before, I may ask a question Is there anyone here who'd like to speak with us tonight? That's usually how we kick things off, and it's kind of a standard, question, and we may get some chatter back and forth. And if I get what sounds like a response from the ghost box, then I kind of hone in on that. And let's say a woman, pipes up and says, "Well, I'm here and I want to talk." Then I may say, "Well, what is your name?" And if Sawn says blue, well, that's not a direct answer to my question. So we kind of move on, and I may ask the question again, just to give it plenty of time. Okay, do you have a name? What is your name? If I get, in a reasonable amount of time, because we usually do a pause, and sometimes we edit those pauses out for the sake of, people, drooling during our YouTube videos for boredom. But, we edit that little time out, and so you get a question. And then I say, "What's your name?" And she says, "Sarah." Okay, that could be a response. Could still be coincidental. So let's take this on down. "How did you die, Sarah?" And then suddenly we get the response, "I was run over by a train." Now the ghost box has taken on some, that's significant, because at this point now I've got a line of questioning that's being answered, and we can take and run with that. If we don't have a double blind situation, and we're all listening to the question and the answer, the issue is if I say, "What's your name?" and we're all listening to this chatter, and we hear something say, "Sarah," and they say, "Oh, did you hear that? I think they said Sarah." And so you're matrixing out because you're expecting a response to the question. And so in the double blind situation, there is no response to the question. And Sawn brought it up earlier. One of the funniest, it's not funny, sometimes as a questioner it's really frustrating. We'll be in the middle of this huge conversation. We've been in the midst of this incredible conversation. And Sawn will pop his ears out and go, "Is this making any sense at all?" Because, he doesn't know. He's just throwing out what he hears. And to him, it's disjointed. He doesn't, when you throw out just words here and there, not knowing the other side of the conversation, you have no idea what's going on. But when you put the two together, it's an amazing response, sequence that keeps going.
I think it's fascinating, and everybody should try it. I'm going to try it next time with mine as well. Try to do it.
I want to work on that because, we run the ghost box just about every place that we go. We'll run a session for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to do that to where I think it's just really cool that, you have someone who can't actually hear what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah. And so when you ask a question and they spit out an answer, it matches.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, for us, we're trying to scientifically prove a point. We're trying to say, look, this is a scientific field that needs to be analyzed from a scientific perspective. So you need to use the scientific method to show it. So if you're doing open air ghost box, anyone who's saying, "Well, what do you think about that, Mr. Scientist?" the scientist can say, "That's insane." But if you come to them with the double blind ghost box process, and you don't have and you can't hear the response or the questions, now you have some scientific proof to give them. I mean, I want to take it even further to go into deprivation tanks. Name it. Really amp it up.
Oh yeah. And it's important to note, our research really validates previous ghost box stuff. I mean, ours, it says, that you heard on your ghost box on your speaker, just because you didn't use double blind, this validates, the ghost box works. What you heard, may have exactly been, what you thought it was. The double blind just gives you that level of, scientific ability to come back and say, look, this was done completely in a more empirical, approach, right. So that, it's a little more amazing to say, he didn't know what was being asked, and I think that's important to note that, the ghost box works.
Absolutely.
Double blind or not. So,
yeah.
Got a quick question from Chad I just stumbled on. Darren says, yes, as a Christian, I think it is important to stick to, Darren, this is a big word for a blonde. Come on now. Eisegesis of Scripture, or eisegesis, maybe?
Eisegesis.
Eisegesis, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Stick to eisegesis of Scripture and not read the evidence into Scripture.
Right.
Do you think this is important?
That's where you take the Scriptures and you try to mix into whatever whatever you think it means today, and not necessarily go back to the context of what the scripture actually meant in the first place. You know, understand who was the writer, what did the writer mean, you know, when they were writing it. You know, if you take a Christian apologetics, you know, I went to the seminary and learned all that. But yes, to that point, you need to take a look at scripture and understand a parable is a parable. It's there to teach you certain things. So yeah, I agree with that statement.
Thank you for your question, Darren.
Yeah, thank you. I have a question. I got to get in before we're done. Okay, because it has to do with when you guys were being led to, supposedly, and let me see if I get this right.
Oh, the F test?
We're in a school, and someone wanted some papers that were in a safe. Okay, now, so the ghost box led you to the area where the room where the safe was in actually was, but it led you to a pile of rubble with an old electrical box in it.
A little brown box. Yeah,
okay, so my question is, why would this entity, and I'm saying they're saying here, you got it, as if that was it, but that was not it. You were supposed to be looking for a safe, not an electrical box.
Well, it's funny you asked that because, and I think we explained in the video, we may not, I'm not sure, but when we finished it, you know, of course, we're thinking the same thing. We're looking at this little brown box going, okay, it's an electrical box. You were close. There was probably never a letter in this box, but okay, maybe you thought there was.
Yeah.
Well, so we go upstairs and we start talking to the owner. Come to find out, the little brown box was right next to a room that had been hollowed out. It had been demolished. The walls were still there, but there was nothing in the room.
Right.
And he asked where we were, and I told him, we showed him where we were, and he goes, oh, that's the old school vault. That's where the safe was in the school. So that's where they kept all the records that
all the
that
records,
the school had.
all the papers.
Yeah.
All the papers were kept in that little vault. And it was like, okay. You know, because at that point, you know, maybe, was it leading us to the little brown box? Probably wasn't the brown box. It was probably the larger safe. But
Okay.
you know, the fact that the little brown box was there, they may have keyed on that themselves. I don't know. I mean, they never explained it.
To the wall of the room where the safe was in.
Yeah,
Right.
that whole thing, the little brown box, the F test, you know, those talk about the ability to use the ghost box to
bring up. You guys said that you didn't find grave markers out there. Found the
That's
F
right.
stone. Now, what if those stones were flat stones and they're actually covered up with dirt and all that stuff?
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. Well, there was also a huge thorn thicket right there, too.
Yeah, but if you ever go back, you might want to, you know, try kind of moving around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you may find them.
Yeah.
And there was a stone. There was a stone with an F carved into it,
Right.
which is what we were trying to find. And man, it led us right to it. There was another video. It's called the Aquatic Ghost Box, and I kid you not, the ghost box told me where a sunken ship was, and it told me the name of the ship, exactly where it was, and sure enough, it was right there.
Wow.
So,
Yeah, wow.
I personally, we got really close to doing this, but there was a case where there was a missing girl or something like that, and it's like I said, this is like right on the gray line here. Using the box to be able to help or assist the police officers or law enforcement in cases, like if someone, you know, was kidnapped or whatever, could you find them? Because I personally believe the answer is yes, because we've seen time and time again where we were getting information from the box and it was leading us like a beeline straight to whatever the answer was.
That was one of the things I was actually going to bring up if we'd had more time.
Yeah.
Was about that.
Yep. Because it can be done.
Using a ghost box to find a missing person. I had it wrote down here to ask you about that.
I think that there's potential there. It's not, you know, it's not our mission what we do, but it can be done. We've proven that it can
I quoted this as a psychic in a box.
be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's psychic in the box, yeah.
That's funny.
But anyway, Ghostbox validates history. This is, I thought, was interesting also. Tell us a little bit about the battle from the Ghostbox perspective. What was said through the box about the battle, and this is not I'm not sure which battle this was. It's not Gettysburg. Somewhere else you were. It may be the one you were talking about earlier. But you had put in here Ghostbox validates history, and you put a little bit in there about that.
Oh, it might have been the major or the Graham House, I believe, probably with the 1777 where it had validated the Shawnees that had attacked the family. It talked about their son. It basically just it validated history and reenacted the history of what the events were on the box. It was spouting off names, you name it. I mean, it was all in there.
Well, we actually heard Native American, what sounded like Native American language in the ghost box as well. Of course, none of us would speak it, so we couldn't hear. But it was completely. It was something we've never heard in any other ghost box situation. It was just, it was, to us it was gibberish, but you could tell it was a language. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't a mess. It was a language, but we didn't know what was being said because none of us spoke it. But it was amazing.
Have you ever caught like Native American drums or anything like that through there?
What was that?
Have you ever caught like Native American drums or anything like that through there?
I think we did in that one, didn't we? Didn't
I think there was.
I
seem to recall that there was drums or something that were being played. Yeah.
In the Graham House.
Yeah. That's we haven't heard Native Americans anywhere else except for the Graham House, and Native Americans are actually there are a lot of Native American settlements and things like that around and where we are here in the Appalachian Mountains, obviously.
Okay, I have to ask you this one last question, and we can just do whatever. But I'm really interested in if you're doing a session and you have answers coming through in a different language, how would the listener translate this to the people outside there, so that they can understand what's being said?
We record it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
And a lot of times, like in those situations, Sean, and there's a couple times, something will be said and he can't catch it. It's been said too fast and he can't catch it. And he'll usually say something on the video like, they said something really good there, but I couldn't catch it. And then we can go back to the recording and really dissect it at that point. The other way, if they hear foreign languages, say somebody's talking in a foreign language here, don't know what's going on.
That's right.
And that's really all we can do.
Is there not a way that you can translate that stuff though, to where you can?
Absolutely. Yeah. Not necessarily on the fly, but that is in the book. We show you exactly how to hook up the ghost box so that you hear it, but you also record it, because that's just as important.
Right.
If you're hearing all of a sudden French, and I don't know French, I can at least play it back and say, hey, can you tell me what this is saying?
Right.
Yeah, during evidence review.
Or you possibly could run it through some kind of translator, maybe?
Yeah, the smartphones have app translators now. Yeah.
It is, but, you got to remember, this is Ghostbox audio. Ghostbox audio, like, I really wish that I could hook up Dragon Naturally Speaking to a Ghostbox. But it doesn't work. I get order from Papa John's Pizza all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And a bunch of just a bunch of shushes,
Right.
Awesome.
That would be really good right now, but
Sure does.
yeah, the pizza. Oh, I love that. But anyways, hey guys, this has been really freaking awesome.
It really has. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate you having us on.
We also like to ask our guests to come back later for like a possible roundtable where we bring in other guests with similar or controversial issues to where we can adult debate.
Okay.
Okay, so if you're willing to do that, that would be awesome later on. Maybe next year.
Talking about when we butt heads, but we don't put horns on the ram each other.
Right.
Oh, it's perfectly fine with me.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
You guys
Thank you all.
great, and I hope everybody in chat enjoyed this, and I'm sure you did. We want to thank all of the people in chat, everybody that were listening but wasn't in chat. Thanks all for coming and watching. And you guys, if you want to give out links to where people can find your book at one more time real quick.
Yeah.
The best place to go would be just if you go on YouTube, look for Supernatural Media. We will show up. Got lots of videos out there, and every video will show you how to get the book.
Awesome.
Also, you guys, are y'all not on Amazon or any of that?
It is. Yeah, it's on Amazon. I mean, if you go to Amazon or Google, you type in Double Blind Ghost Box,
Okay.
you'll find our Facebook, the books, YouTube, all of it shows up.
Awesome. And trust me, you want to go get this because it's really interesting. We'll tell you that. I mean, like I said, I had 3 pages of stuff just out of the first chapter, and didn't get through all of it in 2 hours. So yeah, you're gonna love it.
Roger, thank you for having us, man.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I will get you guys a link to this here. Oh yeah, you got to give me the link to that page.
I will. I'll show you how to get it.
I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Michelle.
Talk to you later,
Goodbye,
Roger.
everybody.
I will. Bye-bye.